Etapu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Harun Nefer, may Buddha bless you. This is Qesankh Keperu with another exciting video for you. And in this video, we're going to talk about why Jesus does in fact exist. But before I do that, I would like for you to hit the like button. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button and get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. If you're interested in learning more about my spiritual teachings, you can scroll down below, click on the links, and download an ebook, which will take you on a deeper dive journey. But however, if you want to follow that rabbit down the rabbit hole, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. It's up to you. You get exclusive access to instructional videos, videos on the esoteric, videos that will teach you how to meditate, proper breathing exercises, how to call upon spirits for your protection, how to do self-hypnosis to get rid of fear, anxiety, curb overeating. And lastly, if you are a Sarah level supporter, you'll get all of your spiritual readings, oracle readings, for free. So become a Patreon supporter today. You can cancel at any time. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get this revolution started. All right, so let's talk about this subject, which is it's a very interesting subject. Why does Jesus, in fact, exist? Now, I'm going to explain something to you, and once you understand this concept, you'll understand a lot about how the occult, spirituality, and religion works. It's going to give you a kind of behind the scenes view of what goes on and why certain things were put in place. But what you need to know first and foremost is that the Bible is based on astro-theology. The Bible was composed of constellations, stars, and how they interacted with each other. They were deified and then put into stories. Now, along comes Western man or European man who doesn't understand the concept of symbolism, of analogies. And because they think from a primarily left brain perspective, which is concrete thinking, they read and they literally think that these so-called characters, archetypes, are actual figures when they represent stars and constellations and how those things interact with each other. So they misunderstand or misunderstood the whole idea of what the Bible was about, which is a book of occult practices that contained a lot of depth to it. Many Egyptologists say that the Egyptians loved the idea of puns or story within a story within a story. That's a right brain attribute of when you can take one thing and from that one thing see the many things. You see, the idea of monotheism and polytheism are not contradictory to each other, because the ancient Egyptians were always monotheistic. But they saw that there were many attributes to God, and those attributes they codified as deities. And to give you an understanding of the persona or the personality of the deities, they created them as anthropomorphic figures. But see, modern Western man doesn't understand the idea of complementary elements. He sees everything as contradictory. So it's either monotheism or polytheism, not understanding the fact that the Egyptians did believe in the one God of Amen. But from that God sprang forth the different intelligences or attributes of God. The one attribute of God is spiritual power, which is symbolized by Sekert. Another one is supreme wisdom, symbolized by Tehuti. Another attribute is Ma'at, God's justice, God's seeking justice and order. Ma'at. And Western man misses this entirely. And therefore you have in the Bible, or with certain religious orders, the hatred of the gods, the hatred of what they coin as polytheism. When in fact, we see the all as one and the one as all. There's no difference. There's a complement. You see, this goes back into how the right brain works, through synthesis. And the left brain works through segregation, separating. We understand the idea of holding two opposing thoughts and having them live together harmoniously within our psyche. This is how you don't create enemies. You don't start wars, because you're always looking for, or in congregative thinking mode, you're trying to see the commonalities and the interrelationship and interdependence between all things in life. You're not looking to compartmentalize and to separate things. Now, too many people in the Kemetic arena who profess to be Kemetic scholars and make the same mistake as the Western scholars, meaning they read the Kemetic scriptures, the Book of the Dead, the Port Emaru, and they read it in terms of acquiring knowledge, which is Sebek, and they forget the Tehuti aspect of wisdom or right brain thinking. So they become very literate and very functional in regurgitating information, but they don't see the depth and the meanings in terms of the analogies, the symbolisms that are contained within the Egyptian papyri. So they miss out on the occult meanings. And let me explain to you this. You see, many of them are adepts, and they will tell you, yes, the Roman Emperor Constantine in 325 AD removed the idea of Mary being worshipped in favor of Jesus. But there's much, much more to what they were doing than merely rewriting the Bible, which is what they tried to sell you on. It wasn't, the Conference of Nicaea wasn't just about a rewriting of the Bible, but it was a shift of the entire planet to a different way of thinking. You see, what they wanted to do was transfer our thought process from right brain to left brain. This is why you have Mary or Isis representing the moon and Jesus representing the Son of God. The Son is the waking state, the left brain. The moon is the right brain, the subconscious mind. Back then in antiquity, these individuals were masters of the occult and masters of spiritual practices in the mystery schools. They didn't just arbitrarily decide to worship Jesus above Mary. They had a plan in place. You see, the mere creation of the idea of Jesus as an archetype, as a figure, not as an historical figure, does a couple of things, you see. It takes away your power, and you thus rely on external force, on external proxy, to save you, to perform miracles. You see, those who were crafting the Western religions, they were crafted, knew that the world needed archetypes, a Mary archetype, a Jesus archetype, because they knew that you would never buy into the fact that you are God and could perform miracles on your own. So to help you, they created the archetype of Jesus, who could come in and step in and then perform the miracle on your behalf. They knew that you could relinquish your power to an outside source, to a permission slip to work your power, because the masses of people would never buy into the fact that they were gods and they could work this power. They also knew that in order to control the masses of the population on the planet, they would have to castrate you, take away your power. And the way to do that was to get you to worship the outside external force, the outside God and the outside Son of God. Now, if you know anything about the matrix we exist in, the matrix conforms to your strongest belief. If you tell the matrix that Jesus has power, it will create Jesus with power. And it will thus remove power from you, because now you're saying that this man has power and I don't, and I need him for my salvation and to perform miracles on my behalf. So the matrix removes the power from you. It robs you. It takes the power away from you to place it in this figure. But what is Jesus? We know that Jesus is a plagiarized version of Osiris. We know Mary is a plagiarized version of Isis, a Set. But when you start diving into occult works and occult powers, you start understanding the creation and the summoning of spirits, specifically ergobores, thought viruses. And the worshiping of these spirits, the creation and the worshiping of these spirits, lends them power and autonomy. They become sentient beings that exist in the ether. So when the Roman Emperor Constantine said, we're going to worship Jesus, and the creation of this archetype was a occult practice and formula that he was performing to create this archetype, to feed it energy, and to give it life. So that throughout the years, the century, Jesus has been worshipped and has accumulated so much energy in the ether that it's sentient. It's autonomous. It exists. And it can manifest. This is the same thing that the occultists did with racism by creating a ergobore, a spiritual thought virus that is racist in nature, to create havoc and division on the planet. It has no specific form or image. It exists as an abstract thing, but it exists. And it influences people in the same way that Jesus from the ether influences people. It exists as a spiritual entity. Not as an historical figure, because the historical figure of Jesus never existed. But this entity does exist, and it acts in accordance with what you see in the Bible. Now, one may say, well, if Jesus exists in the ether, why isn't the planet shifting to the Christ consciousness level of where there is peace and harmony and things of that nature? And the reason it doesn't do that is because the Roman Emperor Constantine and many in the religious sector made sure that that would not happen, because that is not the archetype or the spiritual entity's job. You see, the Christians, being the left-brain people that they are, focused on the material and external aspect of things. So in other words, they were okay with the gesture of doing good, but not really transforming the spirit of the person. They were okay with coming to church on Sunday and then doing all kinds of backwards and corrupt things the rest of the week. And the creation of their archetype followed suit. This entity of Jesus is not meant to destroy racism, end wars, stop the Illuminati. It is only meant as a selfish religious sect to get people to come and make it stronger, and to bring a modicum of maybe goodness into their lives and miracles. But if we had created an archetype like for example, Osir or something similar to that, where the planet would worship it, which taught spiritual elevation from within, the changing of the mind, and not just doing good for the sake of showmanship. Then if we have been worshiping Osir for those centuries, the world might be a different place. Because that entity, that spirit, that is a sentient being, would start to act on its own behalf and to act upon which it was created for, to help transform the psyche of people on the planet. That's not Jesus, his role. That's not his role. That's why we don't see this transformation of the population of people on the planet. Christians are some of the most hypocritical people they are. Christians have started wars, have burned people at the stake, engaged in the witch hunt, sexism, and racism. So you cannot ask this Jesus archetype, this Jesus spiritual entity, to save the planet. It can't do that. That's not what it was created for in the occult laboratories. When in ancient Africa, when there was a problem in the nation, the high priest would go into a state of trance with the other high priest and create a spiritual entity that would do battle in the ether against the negative energy or thing that was threatening the nation. That's how issues were resolved. Sometimes, other times there will be direct intervention. But they saw that it could attack the problem from a metaphysical perspective. This is another aspect of right brain integrated thinking, which is, or does not fall in line with Cartesian logic, meaning the one-to-one relationship. Western man could never conceive of the fact that you could eradicate evil by going into a trance state, creating an ergobor or spiritual entity that would do battle with the evil that's going on in society. That concept is alien to them because of their concrete thinking. Everything has to be apples and apples, a one-to-one comparison. This is why you have a police force that is necessary, because if there's a blackout, people will start rioting, pillaging, raping. That shows you that the masses of the people are not spiritually elevated, that you've only imposed or coerced them into doing or living by a law. But their hearts are still ruled by their animalistic emotions. And the removal of those laws or restrictions, such as the case of a blackout, you will then see the true nature of the population come out. But in ancient Kemet, they knew this. So they worked to transform the psyche of the people, the spirit of the people. This is why many non-Western cultures are superior to Western cultures. Let us look at Japan, for instance. There's a level of respect they show each other. There's a culture that is cohesive, that binds them. Celebration of the ancestors, veneration of the older elders. Culturally, they don't like to litter. They're more collective in their thinking. They're more polite toward one another. Those attributes are alien to Western society. Go to New York and try to jump on the subway and you'll see it's every man for himself. Go to a Japanese subway system, you'll see they're very courteous. They help you to get on, step on, because there's a culture to them. And that's what we had in Africa, a culture that respected the elders, respected one another, venerated the gods and the ancestors. Therefore, there was no need for external laws. We had laws, but there was rarely need for external laws to be imposed upon the population, because the population had spiritual culture and they acted in accordance with that, no matter if their lights were on or off, no matter if the police were watching or not. There was always ma'at within the hearts of the people. Here, the left brain is celebrated to such a degree where they praise cunningness, getting over on people and the system. That's not a way to live. And these are the same people that created the archetype or the idea of Jesus. And hence you wonder why this entity that exists in the ether has not saved the population of the people on the planet. It can't do that. That's not what it was created for. So although it may exist in a metaphysical form and thinks independently and acts independently, it'll never fulfill the objective of salvation of the planet. It'll never do that. It wasn't designed to do that. But if you understand what I'm saying, and if you're into the spiritual arts, then you know that you can create an archetype with the right attributes. And if enough people collectively get together and celebrate it in ritual and dance, it will become more powerful and will become autonomous, and then it will seek to invoke justice on our behalf. But those notions are gone, those ideas are gone, because we don't do that anymore, because that knowledge, that secret occult knowledge, was robbed from us and taken from us. So all we think now about is protests, lobbying for certain laws. Laws don't change the hearts of people. You know, if they did, we'd be changed a long time ago. It'd be a different world. So I wanted to bring you this understanding of how our ancestors constructed the so-called religion of Asar and Set, how Christians crafted the archetype of Jesus, what it was meant for, and how these spiritual practices and occult powers are supposed to work. And you are supposed to call upon them in times of need. Now, the great thing is we do have the gods. They do still exist. Maybe not as powerful as they once did, but they still exist. And if we celebrate them, if we do not forget them, they become more powerful. And the more people on the planet celebrate them, the more strength they have to invoke justice for our people. I want to thank you for tuning in today. This is Qesankh Ma Keperu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. Ma'at is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, Amun Ra.